Hey everyone! So today's topic is going to cover how to get rid of excessive algae in your fish tanks. So if your fish tanks are starting to look like this one, where it's got a bunch of excess algae growing on the walls, or if yours looks kind of like this tank over here that has a lot of extra algae growing all over the rocks, you're probably wondering what are some good ways to get rid of it. So in today's video, we're going to show you some of the products that we use to help clean up that algae, and also a bunch of the different fish that you can get that can actually help get rid of that algae for you. So here are our algae pads and algae scrapers. These kind of help you get the algae off of your walls if you want a quick fix. So we have the ones with the longer handles, that way you can reach inside larger tanks, and we also have the smaller ones you can use for smaller tanks. That just helps scrub the algae off your wall without hurting the glass. And if you've got some really stubborn algae that just won't come off with one of the algae pads, we do have an algae scraper, which is a harder surface, so that way you can scrape the most stubborn algae off of your glass. So now we'll talk about ways to keep the algae from building up in your tank by keeping fish that will actually eat that algae for you. It can also help clean up if it gets built up. And the first fish we've got here is the molly. These guys love to eat algae. We actually will put them purposefully in a tank that has lots of algae buildup. That way that we can get it cleaned up by these guys. So they're kind of like little cleaning crews. And the mollies only get about 2.5 inches maximum in length, so they stay pretty small. So they're a pretty good choice to keep. And they're a very peaceful fish. Actually, all of the fish that I'm going to show you today are going to be peaceful fish. So next up, we're going to talk about some catfish that can help. The first one is the Otocinclus, or Otto catfish. As you can see, this guy is happily chowing down on some algae that's grown on these plants. So they're another good type to keep. And these guys only get about 2 inches long, so they also stay pretty small. So next up is our catfish called the Farlowella. It's got to be one of the funniest looking fish we have. These guys, they will get about 5 3/4 inches long. And you can see they have the suction cup mouths for sucking all that algae off of your tank's walls. So that's another good way to help control it. Now we'll move on to the very appropriately named algae eaters. This little guy here, he is a gold algae eater. And the guy over here, he is a normal colored algae eater. Now both of these guys will get about 5.5 inches long. And once again, these are all peaceful type of fish that will get along with anything you have in your tank. And you can see this one happily munching away and trying to clean off that rocky ledge there. Now these guys are called Garra Rufa algae eaters. These guys, they get a little bit bigger. They get about 4 inches long, but they're still pretty cool fish. And then the other kind that's really closely related to those guys is the Garra Flavatra. They're a little bit more colorful than the Garra Rufa. They get a little bit smaller. They only get about 2.5 inches long. So they're also really good at cleaning the walls and cleaning the rocks. So the last group of fish we're going to talk about today is in the Plecostamus family. This is a common Plecostamus, and it gets about 18 inches long, or even a little bit longer. These guys are definitely bigger than the ones we've talked about before, but we do have other kinds. This one is called the Rhino Plecostamus, and he gets a little bit smaller, averaging at about 11 inches long. So these guys are a little bit smaller, but they do just as good a job as the common one as for cleaning up your tanks. So if you want to go a little bit smaller, we've got the rubber Plecostamus, who only gets about 5 inches long. So they do just as good a job, but they can also fit into smaller areas than the bigger ones can. So yeah, I hope that gives you guys a better idea of what kind of fish you should get if you're trying to keep the amount of algae down in your tank, and also some of the products that you can use if you have way too much built up and you want to quickly remove it yourself. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone.